Hey everyone, and welcome back to the JJ English Podcast, your warm and friendly space to unlock English, step by step, together. I'm really happy you're here today because this episode feels safe. It feels familiar. It feels like one of those topics where people usually say, "Oh, I can talk about this." And then when the moment comes, they freeze a little. Today, we're talking about family. And I know that sounds simple, but for a lot of English learners, talking about family is not as easy as it looks.
Hey everyone, I'm glad you're here too. And yeah, that's very true. Family feels like an easy topic, but when someone actually asks you about your family, your brain suddenly starts searching for the right words.
Exactly. Someone asks, "Tell me about your family." And suddenly you're thinking, how much do I say? Where do I start? Do I need details? And then the conversation moves on and you didn't say anything.
And what's interesting is that in real life, native speakers don't give long explanations about their family either. Most of the time, they keep it very simple.
Yes, and that's something we really want to normalize today. Talking about your family in English does not mean telling your whole life story. It usually means just sharing a little.
Just enough to connect.
I remember when I was learning another language, family was one of the first topics people asked me about. And every time I felt this pressure to explain everything correctly. I wanted to say who everyone was, where they lived, what they did, and honestly, it was too much.
That pressure makes people silent.
Yeah. And later, I realized something important. People weren't asking because they wanted details. They were asking because family is a comfortable topic.
Exactly. Family is small talk, but meaningful small talk.
So let's start very gently here. When people talk about family in English, they usually start with very basic sentences. Things like, I have a small family. I have a big family. I live with my family. Nothing fancy.
And these sentences are used all the time. They don't sound basic, they sound normal.
Yes. So let's slow down here for a second. If you're listening, you don't need to repeat everything out loud all the time. But for this one, let's do it together, just to feel the rhythm.
Nice and easy.
Let's say this together slowly. I have a small family.
Again, nice and calm. I have a small family.
Good. That sentence alone is already enough for many real conversations. Another very common sentence is, my family is very close, or my family is not very big.
And you can stop there. You don't need to explain why.
Exactly. This is something learners often forget. You're allowed to stop.
Silence after a simple sentence is normal.
Let me give you a real example. Imagine you're meeting someone new. They ask, "So, tell me about your family." You can simply say, "I have a small family. We're very close." That's it.
And usually, the other person responds with something about their family.
Yes, and suddenly it's a conversation, not an interview. But Jim, let's do something here. Let's give our listeners a real example. Not a perfect one, a real one.
Okay, sounds good.
So I'm meeting you for the first time, and I ask, "So tell me about your family."
I'd probably say something like, I have a pretty small family. I'm really close to them.
See? That didn't sound rehearsed. It didn't sound like a textbook.
It just sounded honest.
Exactly. And if I'm curious, I might ask something small like, "Do you live with your family?"
And I could say, no, not anymore. I live on my own now.
That's it. Short, clear, natural. I love it. When you talk about family in English, short answers are not bad answers. They're actually the most common answers.
Another sentence people use all the time is, I have two brothers, or I have one sister. Very simple, very useful.
And you don't need to say brother or sister perfectly. People understand. Yes. And if you want, you can add one small detail, like, I have one sister. She's older.
That already feels very natural.
Let's do one more gentle repeat here. Just one.
Take your time.
Say it with us. I have one sister. Again, I have one sister.
Good. That sentence alone is already enough for many real conversations.
Now, one more thing before we move on. Family doesn't always mean the same thing for everyone. Some people live with their parents. Some people live alone. Some people are very close to their family. Some people are not.
And all of that is okay.
Yes, there is no right family story. There is only your story. And English is just a way to share a small piece of it.
Okay, so now that we talked about the basics, let's move a little closer to real life. Because usually, people don't just say, tell me about your family, and stop there. They ask small follow-up questions. And this is where a lot of learners start to feel nervous again, because follow-up questions feel unpredictable.
Exactly. You answer one thing and then comes another question, and your brain goes, oh no, I didn't prepare for this part.
But the good news is, the questions are usually very simple.
Very simple. Things like, do you have brothers or sisters? Who do you live with? Are you close to your family? That's it.
Let's talk about one of the most common questions. Do you have siblings? That question comes up all the time. At work, at school, when meeting new people.
And the answer does not need to be long. You can say, yes, I do, or no, I don't, and then stop.
Stopping is allowed.
Yes, stopping is allowed. This is something we repeat a lot because learners forget it. You don't need to explain your whole family tree. But if you want to add one small detail, you can. For example, I have two brothers or I have one sister.
That's already more than enough.
Let's slow down for just a second and do a very quick repeat here, just to make these phrases feel comfortable.
No rush.
Say it with us. I have two brothers.
Good. That sentence alone works in so many situations.
Now, another question people ask a lot is, who do you live with? This one makes some learners nervous because they think the answer has to be complicated.
But it doesn't.
You can say, I live with my family, or I live alone, or I live with my partner. That's it.
Those are very normal answers.
And notice something important here. Native speakers usually don't explain why unless someone asks.
They don't give reasons by default.
Exactly. So if someone asks, who do you live with? You say, I live alone. And you can stop.
If the other person is curious, they'll ask more.
Let's do a longer real-life example now, a very normal conversation. Jim, I'm going to start it, okay?
Okay.
So we're meeting for the first time, and I say, so do you have a big family?
I'd probably say, not really. I have a small family.
See how natural that sounds? And then I might say, do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have one sister.
And I could say, are you close?
Yeah, we're pretty close.
That's it. That whole conversation is made of very simple sentences.
But it sounds completely natural.
This is a really good moment to say something directly to our listeners. You don't need special vocabulary to talk about family. You need comfort with simple sentences.
Simple English is strong English.
Another phrase people use a lot when talking about family is, we're very close. Or the opposite, we're not very close. Both are okay.
And both are very common.
Let's do one more gentle repeat here because this phrase comes up a lot.
Take your time.
Say it with us. We're very close.
Again, We're very close.
Nice. That phrase works for family, friends, anyone. Now, let's talk about something important. You don't have to like talking about your family to talk about your family.
That's true.
Some people feel very connected to their family. Some people don't. Some people have complicated feelings, and English doesn't need you to explain all of that.
You're allowed to keep it simple and neutral.
For example, if someone asks, "Are you close to your family?" you can say, "Yeah, we're close," or "Not really," and stop there.
That's a complete answer.
Let me share a quick story. I once met someone who clearly didn't love talking about family, and every time the topic came up, they answered very simply. Short sentences, no details. And you know what?
What?
Nobody pushed. Nobody thought it was strange. The conversation just moved on.
Because that's how real conversations work.
So if you're listening and thinking, "I don't want to talk too much about my family," that's okay. English doesn't force you to share more than you want.
You control the depth.
Before we move on to the last part of the episode, let's pause for a moment. If you remember just one thing from this block, let it be this. Talking about your family in English is not about details. It's about connection.
Short answers, simple words, honest tone.
All right, let's slow down a little here. This last part of the episode is less about information and more about feeling. Because when people talk about family, sooner or later, emotions come in. And that's often the part learners are most afraid of.
Yeah. Talking about feelings in another language can feel very vulnerable.
Exactly. And I want to say something important right away. You do not need emotional English to talk about family. You need simple, honest English.
Simple words carry a lot of meaning.
One thing people often do when talking about family is move between the past and the present. They say things like, "When I was a kid," "Now my family is," very simple structures.
And native speakers use those all the time.
For example, someone might say, "When I was a kid, I lived with my parents. Now I live on my own." That's a full story, and it doesn't need details to feel complete.
Let's do a small suggestion here. Not a rule, just an idea. If you want to talk about family more comfortably, try using time words. Words like before, now, when I was young.
Those words help organize your thoughts. So instead of thinking, "How do I explain my whole family?" you can think, "Before and now." That's it.
Let's try one together, nice and slow.
No pressure. When I was a kid, I lived with my family.
Again, when I was a kid, I lived with my family.
Good. That sentence feels very natural. And now the present version. Now I live on my own.
Again, now I live on my own.
Perfect. Two very simple sentences. A complete picture. Another thing that comes up naturally when people talk about family is memories. Not big stories, small moments.
Like everyday memories. Things like, we had dinner together. We spent weekends together. Nothing dramatic.
I'll share a small one. When I was younger, my family used to have dinner together almost every night. Nothing special, just food, talking, sometimes silence. And when I talk about that now, I don't use big words. I just say, "We had dinner together a lot."
And that sentence says everything.
That's something learners often don't realize. You don't need emotional vocabulary to express emotion. You need honesty.
And simplicity.
Now let's talk about feelings directly, but gently. People often say things like, "I'm close to my family," or my family is important to me. These are very common sentences.
And they don't sound dramatic. They sound normal.
Let's do one last short repeat here.
Whenever you're ready.
My family is important to me.
Again, my family is important to me.
Nice. That sentence is used all the time. And remember, you don't have to say this if it doesn't feel true for you.
Yeah, there's no right emotion.
Some people say, my family is busy, or we don't see each other much. That's also honest.
And completely acceptable.
I think this is a good moment to say something very clearly. Talking about your family in English is not about saying the right thing. It's about saying your thing.
And doing it in a way that feels safe.
If you think about it, family is usually one of the first topics people use to connect. Not to judge, not to test you, just to connect. It's a bridge, not an exam.
So if you ever feel stuck, remember this. You can always say less. You can always stop. You can always keep it simple.
Simple English keeps conversations alive. Before we finish, let's slow down one last time. Take a breath. Think about one sentence from this episode that feels comfortable for you. Maybe, I have a small family, or I live with my family, or my family is important to me.
Just one sentence is enough.
And if today you only feel comfortable thinking that sentence, that's okay too. Speaking grows in small steps.
Very small steps.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us on the JJ English podcast.
We're really glad you're here, listening and trying.
If this episode helped you, share it with someone who's learning English too.
And if you want, leave us a comment.
Tell us, in English, no pressure, what sentence would you use to talk about your family?
Short is perfect.
Take it slow. Be kind to yourself.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and have fun learning English.